DWS.
And you are the?
Deputy Director for Investigations with GBI.
Thank you, sir. 1 second, sir. Literally 1 second. Hey, Lewis here. I had live view 94. Are we up?
Can you say something? Let me get my station mic check, please.
Yes, sir. Test, test.
How does that sound?
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Okay, it was good. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
he's
We're
up.
going by.
See him?
Uh-huh, bye-bye.
And I just sent 3 pictures of the shooter to the photos. Okay.
All right, guys, we ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Wanted to come and talk with y'all this afternoon about an incident that happened in Habersham County, Clarksville, Georgia, yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. The incident began at approximately 7:33 p.m. when the Habersham County Sheriff's Office, their 911, received a call for services to 281 Lower Pond Court, a residence located there, Clarksville, Georgia. They received a call stating that there was a domestic dispute going on at the residence and that gunshots were being fired. The Sheriff's Office began to respond to the residence. Upon their arrival near the residence, they were making a turn into the subdivision where the residence is located, and they were confronted by a black Ford Crown Victoria which was speeding toward them. As the sheriff's officers turned onto the road, the Crown Victoria veered off of the road, went into a yard, and spun out in the yard. A white male got out of the Crown Victoria. This white male was later identified as our suspect, Anthony Giaquinta. Anthony Giaquinta got out of the Crown Victoria, and then he ran into the wooded area near the yard where the vehicle stopped. The sheriff's office stopped, looked for him briefly in that area. They had also been notified by their dispatch that Mr. Giaquinta's 16-year-old daughter was the person who had made the initial call to 911, and that she and her boyfriend had fled the residence. They went and they located her outside the subdivision. They had fled in a vehicle. They located her outside the subdivision, made sure that she was okay, and then they turned and they went back to the residence in the subdivision. It was Sheriff Joey Terrell, along with Deputy Bill Zigan, as well as a third deputy who we are not naming at this point for investigative purposes. The sheriff and these 2 deputies, they went back to the residence. They made an approach on the residence going in toward the garage area. Upon entering the garage, they encountered a female who was later identified as Kathy Giaquinta Smith. She is Anthony Giaquinta's ex-wife. They located her deceased on the floor of the garage of the residence. They then posted Deputy Zigan at the entrance to the garage and the outside of the residence. The sheriff and the other deputy made entry to the residence to search for the suspect and to clear and see if there were other victims on the inside. Deputy Zigan was confronted by Anthony Giaquinta on the outside of the residence. It appears that he was likely ambushed from a position that Giaquinta had taken. Giaquinta started firing shots, and Deputy Zigan was struck twice. He went down on the concrete and then crawled to a position of cover inside the garage of the residence. Sheriff Terrell, along with the third deputy on the inside of the residence, they then went back through the garage door. Sheriff Terrell was then shot by Giaquinta when he entered into the garage area. He was shot in his right bicep. The sheriff then returned back into the residence seeking a position of cover. The third deputy was able to step up and exchange gunfire with Giaquinta, and at that point, Sheriff Terrell, the third deputy from inside the house, they were able to evacuate the residence. They were able to get Deputy Zigan from between the 2 vehicles and evacuate him to a position of safety. A perimeter was set up around the residence. Both the Hall County Sheriff's Office SWAT team as well as the Georgia State Patrol SWAT teams were notified. They responded to the residence. When SWAT got on scene, they began to set about securing the residence and look for Gianquinta. They fired gas into the house, fearing that he was inside. Ultimately, it was determined that he was not inside the residence. As they began an exterior ground search of the residence, Gianquinta's body, Anthony Gianquinta's body, was discovered in the rear yard of the residence. At this point, we believe that he was likely killed by the return fire from law enforcement. There is no evidence of a self-inflicted gunshot wound on Anthony Gianquinta. However, all of the bodies have been removed from the residence. They have been brought here to the state medical examiner's office where they will be undergoing examination, and it will ultimately be the medical examiner who makes the final determination about how many gunshots were fired into the bodies, as well as whether Anthony Gianquinta had a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Again, our crime scene examination to this point leads us to think that he does not have a self-inflicted wound, but we'll have to wait on a final determination by the medical examiner's office. Once Anthony Gianquinta's body was located in the rear of the residence, the officers then began a search of the rest of the exterior. In a side yard of the residence, they located a third deceased male who has been identified as Stephen Thomas Singleton. He's a 45-year-old male with a Flowery Branch address. It's our understanding that Mr. Singleton had some type of friendship with Kathy Gianquinta Smith. He was dead in the side yard of the residence, appears to have suffered multiple gunshot wounds. We are not real sure of the sequence of events as to exactly when he was shot during all of this. However, we do believe it was prior to law enforcement ever getting on the scene. Mr. Gianquinta and Mrs. Gianquinta Smith, they have two daughters, ages 16 and 18. The 16-year-old daughter was present at the residence with her boyfriend when this incident actually began to occur. The 18-year-old is a college student and was not present at the residence. The 16-year-old nor her boyfriend were hurt in any of this. They were able to flee to safety. At this point, we are continuing to examine the crime scene, continue to collect data. We have most of our interviews done as far as the investigation is concerned, but there is still a few folks that we're trying to locate and interview. The GBI is conducting the investigation at the request of the Habersham County Sheriff's Office. They are assisting us with our investigation. And then, of course, last night we were assisted by Hall County Sheriff's Office as well as Hall County SWAT, the Georgia State Patrol SWAT, and numerous other local law enforcement agencies from that area. As far as Anthony Gianquinta's background, from what we have been able to determine, he has been in and out of law enforcement for any number of years. We're still trying to get an actual hard count of how many years. He has worked for the Gainesville Police Department. He also worked for the Habersham County Sheriff's Office. He left the Habersham County Sheriff's Office, went overseas to some type of military contractor job, came back to the Habersham County Sheriff's Office, where he worked until June 15th, 2013, at which time he was terminated from employment with the Habersham County Sheriff's Office for allegations of domestic violence. And to our knowledge, from that time, he has not been in law enforcement, but again, that is something that is still under investigation at this time. Does
June 13, 2013 or 14?
13. Yes, sir.
When you said relationship, friendship between Singleton and the ex-wife?
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by that? Like, were they boyfriend, girlfriend? Or?
We're not prepared to say that they were boyfriend, girlfriend. We just know that they have a close friendship, close relationship.
Are you able to come on any restraining orders?
There were no restraining orders in place.
Were there, did you determine what sparked the gunfire? Was it the wife's relationship or something to do with the kids, or what?
We think it is a long simmering domestic dispute that had been going on between Anthony Gianquinta and Kathy Gianquinta Smith. We do think that it involves the personal relationship between the two of them and possibly her relationship with others, but beyond that, we don't have any additional details right now.
How long have they been divorced?
I'm not familiar.
And he says always been a dog handler. Was that his normal police position at all these different places?
He was a dog handler with Habersham County. I can't speak to whether he was a dog handler with Gainesville or when he was a military contractor. I'm not familiar.
Is it typical for the sheriff to respond to a domestic violence call on a Sunday at 7:30?
Yes, sir. In a lot of your smaller areas of the state, it's not uncommon at all for the sheriff to respond. And of course, Anthony Giaquinta, as well as the whole family situation was known to the sheriff, so it would not be uncommon at all for him to be one of the responding people to go there.
Did the sheriff respond specifically because it was one of his former deputies who he knew?
I didn't specifically ask the sheriff that. I know that he did respond because he knew the family and he knew the situation and knew that there was a potential for violence and that type thing there.
Had there ever been any gunfire involving the household before? I mean, the couple, had Anthony ever displayed guns toward his ex-wife?
Not to our knowledge, but it was well known that Anthony had a lot of guns in his possession. But from what we have found so far, there's been no report of there being any gunfire or anything like that
Or
at the
no
residence.
threats, him pointing it at her or threatening her with it?
Not that we are familiar with.
Was there any bad blood between him and the sheriff?
Not that we know of, but I think from what we understand, Anthony Giaquinta was just disenfranchised with law enforcement in general.
If he was terminated for domestic violence, why did he still have a firearm?
Because he was not convicted of domestic violence. He was terminated for domestic violence. However, the charges were not ever adjudicated in court.
How often had he faced charges or allegations of domestic violence?
There's only this one time that we are absolutely positive about. From what we understand, there were rumors about it in the community any number of times, but this is the only time where charges were actually filed to our knowledge.
Was there any indication that the sheriff had ever, or the deputies ever responded to the house before and simply not arrested anyone or charged anyone?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is that something you're looking into?
Yes, sir, we will be looking at that.
So will you actually be looking at radio traffic for calls from that house?
We will pull 911's CAD dispatch log and just look and see. There should be a log of the number of calls that have been to the house.
How
and
many
everything
years
like
would you go
that.
back for that?
Typically, we'd look probably 3 to 4.
You said that he had died, you believe, from return fire from law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what law enforcement was on scene when that fire was returned? Was it just the 3?
Yes, sir. It was just
Habershams?
the 3 Habersham County, the Habersham County Sheriff, Joey Terrell, along with 2 of his deputies.
One of whom was wounded and the other of whom
Yes, sir.
you're holding the name because...
Yes, sir, because we're still actively talking with him and doing the investigation right now.
Can you just go over the part where they confronted him as to how that went down as far as you know now?
Where they actually confronted Giaquinta.
When shots were fired?
When shots were fired?
When the shots were fired, Deputy Zigan had been sent to stand security, if you will, on the entrance to the garage in the hopes that Anthony Giaquinta would not be able to sneak back in while they were trying to search the rest of the house. What Deputy Zigan did not know is that Giaquinta had set up a position in a wooded area, is what we think, near the garage, and we believe he actually fired his shots at Deputy Zigan out of this wooded area.
Now, was he firing with a rifle or?
No, he's firing with a handgun.
You really know what caliber?
Say Glock 9mm.
When they pulled up, you said that he was pulling out in a Crown Victoria, spun out in a yard, and then ran back to his house?
Yes, sir. It would appear so.
Okay, how far was he away from his home when he spun out?
Not less than a quarter mile.
Did Anthony say anything to the deputies or sheriffs at any point? Did he shout anything?
No, sir, not that they have been able to relate to us. But in following up on your question, Deputy Zigan, he is shot by Giaquinta from the wooded area, and then he goes down at that point. He does manage to get himself up and get himself to a position of cover. Sheriff Terrell and the third deputy, when they heard the shots, they came back toward the garage. They could tell that's where the shots had come from. So they came back toward the garage, and Sheriff Terrell steps out first. When Sheriff Terrell steps out, Giaquinta has moved from the wooded area down to a area adjacent to the left-hand side of the garage door. If you were facing the door, much as I'm facing the podium now, he would have been on the left-hand side, and it looks like he peered around, that Giaquinta peered around from the left-hand side of the garage and shot Sheriff Terrell in his bicep at that point. Sheriff Terrell then retreated back inside the residence, through the garage, back inside the residence to get out of the line of fire.
What range is this from?
Guessing on the distance, it would probably be no more than 30 to 35 feet.
Anybody wearing bulletproof vests?
I am not familiar who had vest on. I know Sheriff Terrell did not, but I'm not familiar if the other two deputies did or didn't.
In regard to Anthony Giaquinta, you said that at this time you believe he probably died as a result of a gunshot from one of the deputies. Have you ruled out completely that the gunshot could have been from Singleton perhaps protecting himself? Have you ruled out there were no other weapons? Or? We have not ruled that out, no ma'am. We have not found any other weapons. Everything that we have found up to this point leads us to believe that it was law enforcement's gunshots that killed him. But again, that's something that the medical examiner's office will look at, both to see if there is any kind of self-inflicted wound and also to see if what type of projectiles can be recovered from the body, and if there is something that doesn't match and isn't consistent with what the third deputy was shooting, which was a patrol rifle.
Was there any weapons found by the wife or by Singleton?
Found.
You had found any other weapons. Was there a weapon found in proximity of the wife or Singleton?
No, sir, there was not.
What
You
did
said he
the
had a lot of
16-year-old
weapons.
tell you about what happened, about the events that unfolded? She was the one who made the 911 call. What has she been able to reveal about the sequence of events up to that point?
I'm not going to get specifically into exactly what she said in her statement, but it can be summarized by saying that she and her boyfriend were at the house. Her father showed up, and very quickly after he showed up, she saw him with a gun and heard gunshots and saw that her mother had been shot. And she and her boyfriend then started trying to flee the residence at that point, and they also had called 911.
You said he was known to have a lot of guns.
Yes, sir, it is our understanding.
Can you talk about number or what kind? And
It's something that we're still investigating right now. I don't know the exact number. He was reported by law enforcement officials and other folks in the community as being someone that owned any number of guns at one time. So.
And when they got the call and headed to the house, do you have any indication that they were aware of what they were going towards, other than knowing the residents and who? Did they know he might be armed? Or?
I can certainly tell you, just from law enforcement's perspective, anytime that law enforcement has to respond to a call of domestic violence or anything else that involves someone that is a former law enforcement officer or a current law enforcement officer, should you face something like that, there's always a heightened sense of awareness, a heightened sense of security, because, you know, most of the time they have access to weapons and they've also been trained on how to use the weapons. So certainly they knew going up there that they had to be careful with this particular situation.
One more question.
Was the Crown Vic Anthony personal? Was that registered to Anthony or not?
I am not familiar with the registration. It was identified to me as being his car, but I have not personally seen the registration on it.
No,
sir.
no, but belonging to another law enforcement agency?
No, sir, we don't believe that it did, but again, that's something that we are continuing to check, and I don't have the answer to that right now.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. He's giving y'all plenty.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got some more pictures up here, some better quality pictures if y'all are interested in getting those. I will try to get them online with the